Salesforce sharing settings are one of the most powerful and most popular features of Salesforce and what makes it such a valuable CRM system. As you can see here on the sharing setting page here in a Salesforce setup, sharing settings are all about how much access people have to records that they do not own. So if you're the owner of a record, then of course you'll be able to read it, edit it, change the owner, but sharing settings are all about what about someone else's records? Can you see those records? Do you need to see those records? If you can see them, can you edit them? And every business is going to be different in terms of the most appropriate way to configure that. But the beauty of Salesforce is the variability you've got and how much granular control you can have over each object in your org. So to find sharing settings, you need to enter the setup area by clicking on the gear icon in the top right hand corner and clicking setup. From there, come to the quick find box and type in sharing settings, and then you'll find this page here. What you can see here is every object that is currently listed in your org, alphabetical order, and you'll see these 4 columns. So firstly, we've got the object name, we've got default internal access, default external access, and then whether we grant access using hierarchies. So the object name, that's very straightforward. Now default internal access, that is referring to your Salesforce users, so typically the staff of your organization. So it's all about permissions for staff and users of your system. Default external access is things like any experience cloud sites or customer portals you may have built. So when you've got your Salesforce records and they're being displayed to most likely non-staff, could be partners or customers, it says what is the level of access that they can have over those records. And then granting access with hierarchies is all about your Salesforce role hierarchy and whether these records will be able to be visible by the people higher than you or higher than a person in the hierarchy. So as you can see, all of these Salesforce standard objects, it's already ticked that access is granted with a hierarchy. So somebody that's higher up will be able to see the records of those below them on the hierarchy. And you can't change that for these objects, but you can change it for any custom objects that you create. What you can see here is obviously the default internal, external access. And if I click edit, I'll then be able to change those settings. So the settings available are private. So that means only the record owner can see the record and edit the record and transfer the record. Nobody else will be able to even see that it exists, except for those above them in the hierarchy. So for that person, the next one up, usually their team leader or manager of some sort, they'll be able to see it. And then the manager's manager, etc., etc. But nobody else in the organization will be able to see that record. The next option, public read only, means other people in the organization can see the record, but they can't make any changes to it. So they'll be able to see it and read it, but they will not be able to edit it. The next option is public read write. As the name suggests, they'll be able to read the record and they can edit it, but they can't transfer ownership of that record to somebody else. Then the final option, public read write transfer, is the maximum permissions that someone can have, which means they can do whatever they want. They can read it, they can edit it, and they can transfer ownership to themselves or to anyone else in the org that they've got access to see. So you've got options like that for both external and internal objects, so external and internal users for each Salesforce object. So it sounds like a simple and a boring detail about, oh yeah, sharing settings, but it is such an important thing for every Salesforce org to have a very clear philosophy about record sharing and what works best for their business. There are some organizations that use Salesforce in an operations perspective, and it's not about sales. So there's no sense of ownership and secrecy and fear that somebody else might see your records and potentially profit from them and take that profit away from you. So in those cases where it's more about operations, then sharing records is often a lot more common because you want more people to be able to see all records so that more people can be helpful if they need to. So every organization, depending on their business, is going to be very different in terms of how they need their sharing settings set up. So if you haven't played around with it, then definitely do so. It's going to be a very important skill for you as a Salesforce. Hope that helps.